this is an event for new people to the area, to kind of learn what the club is like and what we do, and to really find out what a great regional club we have here. This is a unique club, I think, because there is a large number of people who live down here from PC. My contact list is about 1,500 people, which you wouldn't expect. It's a big club. It includes Baltimore, so that pumps the numbers up a bit. But it's a big group, and we are far away from PC, so that when you come across other friars in the district, it's a special thing. You find each other, and you automatically have that kinship, that special connection that you only get at Providence. So we really bond over that. A story I like to tell, one of my best friends in DC is our very own Meredith Kirsch, and we were in the same class, and we didn't know each other. I met her here, and the friendship has blossomed, and here we are. But that's the kind of club we have here. We do a lot of things, and you will learn a lot more about it once you come here and throughout the rest of the night. So my name is J.R. Cummings. I am the president of the Capital Area Alumni Club. I have been the president for a little over a year now, July 1st last year, and I love doing this. This is a lot of fun. I love events like this. I am originally I'm class of 2009, so I had my 10-year anniversary, 10-year reunion last year. Feels a little weird, but here we are. I'm originally from outside of Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley. Go Eagles, go Phillies, all the Philadelphia teams. I moved down to DC in 2015 from Philadelphia, and I currently work at the Board of Veterans Appeals, where I am a special counsel doing disability benefits for veterans. So welcome to DC event, and I will allow Haley to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Haley McGurl. I'm a member of the class of 2015, and I have been the vice president of this club since July of last year. I've lived in DC for a little over 4 years now, but I'm originally from Warwick, Rhode Island. So I stuck around home for school and then made my way down here about a year after graduating. I am a marketing manager at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. I've been furloughed since April, but I am ready to go back in a week and a half and hit the ground running and explore all of the ways in which the performing arts are going to change over the next few years, which is cool and exciting and a little scary, but yeah.
All right. So I already talked a little bit about the club. But I wanted to give Haley the chance to say my favorite line that she has about why this club is so great. So Haley, do you mind sharing that?
So yeah, my favorite thing about this club, and a lot of you have heard me say this so many times, but this club allows you the opportunity to do things in DC that you might not otherwise do. For example, we usually have an annual wine tour where we rent a bus and go to a couple wineries in DC or in the like Northern Virginia area, about an hour outside of the city. So that's something that sounds fun, sounds like a nice way to spend a Saturday, but logistically it might be hard to get a group together, to worry about who's driving or how you can get a car. If I know I don't have a car in the city. So another thing we do is an annual boat cruise on the Potomac. So that's the kind of thing that seems like fun, but again, just like maybe more annoying to work out logistics. So we really get the group together to do fun things in the area together, and it's an excuse to just have fun in and around the city.
And we do a lot as a club. Like I mentioned earlier, we have an annual Christmas party. In the fall, we do Mass and Brunch at the Dominican House of Studies up near the JP2 Shrine and Catholic University. We do game watches for for all the basketball and hockey games, which have been a lot of fun. What else do we do? We have a networking night in the summer that is one of our hits. We have almost 60, 70 people come to that. And we also host the Welcome to DC. You guys may be familiar with that, those who just graduated. Welcome to DC week, where we kind of partake in that and they come to the networking night and experience DC. We do social events. We have happy hours. We do a boat tour on the Potomac. If I'm forgetting anything, chime in, and you'll hear more about it throughout the night. So before we get going, I would just ask everybody here, if they haven't already, to help facilitate the back and forth and kind of get an idea of everybody. Please change your name in Zoom to your name and your class year, so we know what year you graduated. For those who don't know how to do that, hover over your box, and there's next to mute, there's a little 3 dots. Click on the 3 dots and go down to rename, which is the 3rd option down. You can rename yourself. So it'd be like J.R. Cummings, 2009. Hushby 09. I'll throw it to Haley for the last couple reminders. You're muted, Haley.
As you have questions, please just send them to the chat, and at the end of each section of the evening, we'll address all of the questions. And at the end, we'll open it all up to a larger Q&A. We encourage you guys to take notes throughout the night, so get your notes apps open or your notebooks. And one last note, this is being recorded by the college, so if you don't want your face shown, just turn off your camera.
All right, so how this is going to work is we have 4 topics of discussion that we're going to work our way through. We have where to live, we have food and drink, we have events and activities, and then we have words of wisdom. Haley and I will switch off moderating each of these sections, but our esteemed panel of alumni will be speaking about what they would suggest throughout all 4 of these panels. And as Haley said, if you have questions, and we are here to answer your questions, so please ask them. We're all prepared to answer them. If you have questions, throw them in the chat throughout each of these section discussions. And at the end of the discussion, we will read them aloud to the panel. And that's how we'll do that. If you have a super pressing question, just unmute yourself and talk. I don't want to restrict anybody, but that's how we plan on having this work. So I will now introduce the panel. Panel, I'm going to ask you to present yourself, say your name, your year, where you're from, how long you've been in DC, and where you work. So why don't we start, I'm just going in alphabetical order, with Mark Capuano. Mark.
Hey everybody, as JR said, I'm Mark Capuano, class of 2012. I've been down in DC since 2012 with a 3-year intermission for law school in Virginia. But I'm back and I work as an associate at the law firm of Covington and Burling. I do complex civil litigation, is basically what my job is. And I'm also from the Calamari comeback state, so let's go.
Okay, Megan Collins.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan. I graduated in 2018, global studies major, Spanish minor, and I've been in DC since the fall after graduation. I work at the United Nations Foundation on an initiative called the Clean Cooking Alliance, which focuses on energy access, mainly in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. Yeah, happy to be here.
I should say we have a lot of alum who have recently made this transition that you're about to make. So this is a really good group of people to talk to and network with. Bill.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. My name is Bill DeMay. I graduated in 2017 with a major in political science and English. I've been in DC for 3 years, since 2017 as well. And I currently work for the Council for Responsible Nutrition, which is a industry trade association that represents dietary supplement manufacturers. So anything from your Flintstone vitamins, your one-a-days, your Centrums, anything in CVS or Walgreens health and wellness aisle.
Great. Sarah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Gianni and I'm class of 2018. I was a poli-sci major with a business studies minor. And similar to Meg, I moved pretty soon after graduation. I've been in DC for around 2.5 years now. I am currently working on the Hill. I work for my district representative from Connecticut. I'm from West Hartford, Connecticut. So Congressman John Larson is the first district of Connecticut, and I do scheduling for him.
Thank you. John?
Oh, babe. Hello, I'm John. I'm also from the Calamari Comeback State. I came to DC after graduation in 2017 to do law school. I recently graduated from law school. Also had a virtual graduation, so I understand the disappointment, but all is good. So right now I'm studying for the bar. The bar was pushed back regarding COVID, so my start date was pushed back, but I'm supposed to be an associate at Arnold & Porter in the general litigation group in January. So I'm excited for that to happen.
Do not envy you, John. Meredith?
Hey everybody, I'm Meredith Kirsch. I'm the class of 2009. I studied public and community service and minored in Spanish. And I've been in DC for 10 years. I initially moved here to go to grad school at Catholic University and decided to stick around. And I currently work at the Washington Post as a senior product manager.
Thank you. I should note Meredith is a former club president.
Yes.
So if you have any questions about the history of the club, Mayor is a great person to go to.
I know where all the boxes are buried.
And you give them all to me in a bag. Nick.
Hey, thanks, JR. Nick Makula, class of 11. Moved down here soon after graduation. So almost 10 years, catching up to a few of you. I work over at the Department of Defense, supporting intelligence operations and gathering globally. And I've been doing that for a few years. I was on the Hill previous to that on the Armed Services Committee. So appreciate the few of you who are up there. Reach out. It's a great place to be. Look forward to talking later.
Nick boasts the longest title of anybody on the panel.
Yeah, I spared you this time, JR.
Rita.
Hi, I'm Rita Murphy, class of 2019. I'm from Westfield, New Jersey, and I was an art history and psychology major at Providence. I moved down here last September, so coming up on a year, and I work as an admission counselor at Catholic University.
Rita signed up to talk about a lot of things tonight, so you're gonna have a lot of good experience.
I think I might have been signed up for me for one category,
well,
but
fair.
That's fine.
Megan Oyundo.
Hi, I'm Megan Oyundo, class of 2019. I was a biology major and math minor. I'm actually originally from the DMV area, so I'm back here now working at the National Institutes of Health, and I work in the NIDDK department.
Thank you. Jessica. Oh no, she's frozen.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I think I'm having some technical difficulties, but my name is Jessica Rodriguez. I graduated in 2016. I was a global studies and Spanish double major. I moved here 4 years ago to work as a paralegal with the U.S. Department of Justice's Antitrust Division. We just were in the news not too long ago, and I left the division to join the Department of Defense as a contractor. So I started about a week ago, and I've been doing that since.
Great. And last but not least, Mary.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Smith. I graduated in 2016, and I'm originally from Lawrenceville, New Jersey, although my dad is from Lincoln, Rhode Island, so I claim part heritage of the Calamari Comeback State. And I studied political science with an econ minor at PC. I've been in DC a little over 2 years now. I moved down here after grad school. I work at DAI Global. We're a big USAID contractor. So I do project management for a USAID women's engagement program in Afghanistan and a water infrastructure project in Lebanon. So it's been a busy few weeks in Lebanon recently.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a really good panel, really great group of people. Ask them questions. Please ask them questions. They are ready to go. Okay, so why don't we start with our first topic? Our first topic is where to live. That is going to be probably the first decision you make when you get here. Where am I going to lay my head? So we have DC is an awesome city. There are a lot of really cool neighborhoods. So getting advice on where you want to end up living, especially as a new grad, is a really important choice. So the first person that's going to talk about this is our very own Bill Dumais. So Bill.
Well, thank you very much, JR. Happy to kind of go through this. I've kind of broken down my kind of comments down into 3 sections. One is where have I lived? 2 factors which you should use to figure out where you want to live, and then just kind of a nice little flow chart to kind of help you come to that decision of where to live in this wonderful city that is DC or Virginia. So where have I lived? So like a few of you on the call, I actually moved down here 2 weeks to the day after I walked the stage at commencement in 2017 to begin an internship on the Hill. So I started out living in university housing on George Washington University's Foggy Bottom campus. That was a great temporary option for me, just trying to figure out where I wanted to be in the city as I just kind of got established, where it was just like, all right, I have a place to rest my head for 3 months before I figure out the next step in the process. And I liked it. It's really good dorms down there. So then I made the jump over to Virginia to live in Falls Church with a family friend for a few months as I was still trying to figure out my employment situation. I lived in her son's former bedroom, which was a nice setup, a lot of ample light. And, you know, we had a nice agreement. Again, my family and her family go way back. So we had a nice agreement where I would do the lawn care during the weekends, and I got a room rate cut. So that worked for me for a few months. She unfortunately sold the home not too long ago, but it was a beautiful home in Falls Church, which is a suburb of DC and Virginia, which is just right off the Orange Line. Then when I found full employment, I moved to the Chevy Chase neighborhood where I got my first place, which was a studio, right across the street from a few great bakeries and shops, as well as a famous pizzeria, which is really good pizza. And then after doing that for a little while, I went down and moved to Mount Pleasant to be a little bit closer to the city in a group house. So I've kind of had a smattering of different living situations in the past 3 years down here. So I've kind of, you know, experienced these kind of 4 different scenarios, and I figured out what worked for me, what didn't work for me. But that's, again, because of trial and error and trying to figure things out. So that's just kind of where I've been across the map in DC. So factors about deciding where you want to live. So one thing to definitely consider is, do you want to live alone or do you want to live with others? Sometimes coming out of PC, you're just fed up with living with housemates that are less than clean, and you're like, hey, I need a break. I need to figure out what my head space is like, what I need to figure out what it's like to live alone. I recommend it. And in fact, I think that everybody who moves down here should do at least 1 year of living on their own in a studio and just see where you want to go from there. Do you need to be around other folks, or are you okay having your own spot, your own pad to call home? The second is budget. You know, sometimes coming down, you're down here temporarily and stuff like that with an internship or a contractorship that's set to expire after a certain time. So you're going to want to ask yourself, do you want to sign on to a 12-month or 18-month lease, or do you want to just find something that's kind of quick, 3 months, living in a shared room or something like that, and that's that. Neighborhood, which was something JR was alluding to. You know, there's a ton of neighborhoods here in DC. I'm going to get to those in just a second. And you really can't go wrong with many of the neighborhoods here. They're all phenomenal. They all have their own, you know, unique culture, and same with different restaurants and places to go and see, parks to walk around. So again, you can't really go anywhere wrong. Roommates, again, goes into a little bit of that. And also, do you want to be, I recommend you be near a metro for sure. Absolutely. You want to be near a metro because obviously most of the time you're not going to come down with cars. So I've kind of gone into my third segment, which is kind of the little chart that I have here. So I would say for neighborhoods, and I'll wrap it up here, I recommend for neighborhoods to get, when you're trying to get your start down here, Columbia Heights is a great neighborhood with a lot of young people, a lot of great group houses. Navy Yard is somewhere that's coming up and coming with a lot more young people starting out there as opposed to some of the other neighborhoods in Northwest. U Street is always a popular one in a similar vein as Columbia Heights, and then Capitol Hill. And obviously, so you want your neighborhood to be, kind of close to or workable with wherever you work. So are you going to be working within the city, or are you going to be working outside the city? And that'll, again, reflect your decision. And then I'll end it here. When I was living in my studio in Chevy Chase, I took the L2 and L1 bus line to and from work. And after a PC event with the alumni group down here, I happened to recognize a face that I had seen at one of these events. And this person reached out, just walked over to me being like, "Hey, I know you." And I was like, who are you? Again, young, trying to figure stuff out. And it happened to be our esteemed president, JR. So me and JR for a better part of a year were bus buddies on that bus line. So that's how I met JR, and that's how I got plugged into the alumni group. So again, divine providence at work right there. So I know I know I went a little bit over, so I'm going to pass the floor back to you, JR.
Thanks, Bill. Nice drop of providence there. Great, thank you. That was great advice. I will open it up to anyone else in the panel who wants to talk. I think there are a couple of people who said they wanted to say something. So, Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, thank you, Billy. That you covered so much, and there's so much that goes with, where you're deciding to live in the city or maybe in the suburbs. Something that I think really ties in, and I know obviously everyone has to make the decision whether or not they want to live with people, one roommate or multiple roommates, or if they want to live alone. For me personally, living with a roommate was a way that really did cut costs. So that worked very well for me. And since it does, connect into the housing topic, I just want to say that if you are looking for roommates, I didn't really know a lot of people when I first moved to DC. And the people I did know kind of already had a housing situation worked out. So I really do recommend, if you haven't checked out already, going on Facebook. There are several housing groups. Even Craigslist, it's not super sketchy. I know people who have found roommates through Craigslist as well. Obviously do your research and try to do like a FaceTime tour if you can't make it in person to look around. But I've just found that people have had a lot of success meeting great people and connecting and making a roommate situation work. So just wanted to throw that out there. And please, if you have questions as to specific groups, I'm happy to talk more about that.
John, do you have something to say?
I want to echo the group housing situation. That is something I did during law school. I lived in Columbia Heights. I would give a shout out to that area because there's a lot of group housing over there, townhouses, and the fun area. There's 14th Street right nearby. It's a convenient location near the Metro line. But I don't know if anyone's planning on going to law school and in our upcoming residents of the DC area, but I moved to Columbia Heights my second year of law school, but first year I was in an apartment in Foggy Bottom near GW. And I would overall just recommend living by your law school that first 1 L year, just because 1 L is a daunting year. It's a tumultuous year of learning, constantly having to be at the law school study for competitions. I think it's harder than the other years during law school. So that's my piece of advice if you're going to law school. Otherwise, I think there's a lot of great areas. Right now I'm in Northern Virginia, which I'm enjoying thoroughly. So I would also, if you want to go across the Potomac, I know some people are betrayed by that, but I appreciate it. I love it. And DC is a close commute. It's a short commute.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Rita, do you have anything to add?
I think someone is trying to speak as well if they want to hop in.
She has her own section, don't worry.
Okay. Well, everyone kind of covered a lot of the big topics. I know Billy was mentioning being near Metro. I happen to actually live right across from where I work right now, which is a luxury I will never overlook. Get to walk right across the street to work. But it really is worth, making sure that you're near that Metro line that's going to be pretty direct if you're not looking for a long commute. Or just being maybe within DC if you're working in DC, or kind of close to Arlington, or across in Virginia if you're in lower DC, or like looking at Silver Springs or other kind of suburbs of Maryland too, which also borders DC. So if you're kind of in a different area, that's a possibility too. I live over in Brookland, which is over by Catholic University, a great little neighborhood, a lot of sort of like up and coming little spots kind of to the right of Columbia Heights that's been mentioned. But yeah, just, a couple of those comments, but a lot's already been said, so.
Great, thank you. Before I hand the mic to Sally, I want to see if anyone else on the panel has anything to add.
Jared, do you mind if I jump in? I know
Yeah,
this
please.
is my panel. I just want to echo the group house sentiment as everyone has said. I moved to a group house. When I moved here, I found it on Craigslist. It was a 6-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And it was, other than a short few months where we had a guy, it was all girls. And it was a lot for sure, but that is how I met some of my very best friends in DC. It's a really great way to get to know people if you're new to the city and don't know a lot of people. I could count on one hand the number of friends that I had here when I moved here. And now like some of my best friends here are former roommates. And I lived there for over 4 years until I just moved to a similar group house situation, but a little smaller. So I just wanted to echo that. And I also want to mention, I know a lot of you are talking about the bus lines, or I'm sorry, the Metro, but I just want to reiterate Bill's point. To learn the bus system, the bus system is going to be like your secret weapon in this city, because it's going to connect the places that the Metro doesn't go. So you don't always have to Uber everywhere. So if you're trying to get to a place where it's not really Metro accessible, or you find yourself living somewhere that's not Metro accessible, do like on your Google Maps, figure out how to get from point A to point B on the bus, and it will change your life.
And to add to that, there's an app on the phone that's called Transit, and I think it's much better than WMATA's app. It goes through, it can literally plug in any way of getting around DC, whether it be buses and Metro. And for me, at least for my work commute, the bus is actually more direct than Metro, which I'm thankful for. And it actually is less time because I don't have to transfer down at one of the major stations down at Chinatown. So definitely endorse what Haley just said about the bus weapon.
So your first introduction to DC is that there's a bunch of acronyms around DC. WMATA is Metro, Washington Transit, whatever. If you hear WMATA, they're referring to the Metro. You'll get accustomed to alphabets soon.
JR, one thing to add on,
please.
On transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you ask for new folks to the area. One, there are a few buses that are free. And they're more like fun buses. They don't go to downtown. They ride the mall and other places. So I try and take advantage, not so much anymore, but probably 5 years ago, when I didn't have a car and cared a lot more about how I got, or cared a lot less about how I got places, I would take the bus as much as possible, the free one. And then 2, a lot of work situations will pay for transportation when you use public transportation. So they'll issue you a stipend or just fill your Metro card, especially government. And if you don't know to ask and your HR department isn't that great, you may not know, or they might not tell you, and it'll save you, hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month potentially, based on how far away you're commuting. So make sure you ask. The answer could be no, but it's most likely going to be yes, and it's good savings. So.
Yeah, I'll second that. I haven't paid for a Metro ride since I got my job at the VA. The federal government will pay for your rides to and from work. So, Jessica, did you raise your hand?
I was just going to echo what you and the other gentleman said. I had my transit covered for the past 4 years through the DOJ. So that was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else on the panel have anything to add that hasn't already been said? I would encourage you to look in the group chat. There's been a handful of resources that have been provided. So check out those links. Thank you, Megan, for sharing that. And Jess and Haley. So I will hand the torch over to Sally Corkin. Sally is a graduate PC class of 1990, and she is a real estate agent in the area. She has your license in Maryland and DC, correct?
Maryland and DC, yep.
Great. Okay, and she's going to provide some tips on the technical aspects of renting if you're in the mood to buy something.
Yeah.
What was yours?
So anyway, I am originally from Boston. I'm trying to keep my Boston accent as much as I can. And like JR said, I graduated in 1990. Many years ago, I ended up in DC in 1994 to open a branch office. I was working as a marketing manager for Transnational. It's a company in Boston right across from Fenway Park. So I opened up a branch office for them and then met my husband at a Catholic young adult group. And we have 7 children. When I first moved here, I lived in Georgetown in a townhouse. That's right near Georgetown University for those who are new. So adequately named Georgetown. And then from there, I moved to the Palisades section in in DC. And then after we got married, we moved to Kensington, Maryland, which is a suburb just north of DC. It's right on the Red Line, right near Strathmore Performing Arts Center and Rockville and Bethesda, North Bethesda. So I've been in the area for over 20 years. And I'm a realtor, specializing in northern, in Montgomery County, which is north of DC, and I have my license in DC also. So I really just enjoy helping people, especially young people. I have children about, there's my 7-year-old. I love you too. He's my youngest. But I do have a graduate who just graduated last December from Catholic University, Rita. So she enjoyed her time there. So I'm familiar with that age group of people wanting to try to go out on their own. So I just wanted to kind of give some tips, renting. What Bill said, if you want to get a place by yourself, I think it's great. There are a lot of opportunities to rent in the DC area, all over, in DC, in Northern Virginia, in Maryland. And like everybody's saying, live close to where you work. Traffic in DC is notoriously horrible. I mean, I was commuting into Boston every day before I moved, and it was nothing compared to DC traffic. And you never know when. There's going to be some person visiting from another state, and the streets are shut down, and you have to wait and everything. So live close. Try to live close to where you work. And so anyway, so if you are filling out a lease for a place that you want to rent by yourself, the market in DC is constantly moving because there's so much turnover in this area. We have the military, we have the federal government, we have government employees that just come in and out. So there's constant turnover of housing. So things tend to go quickly. If you find something you like, you really like it, then jump on it fast, because I've had many clients lose an apartment or a townhouse or a rental of their dreams because they didn't move quickly enough. So that's just my advice. If you find something that you really like, jump on it fast. I do think that living in a group house would save a lot of money in your first years, and in trying to figure out exactly where you want to live. The DC neighborhoods, like Bill was saying, they're so diverse. There's so much to offer in each little, Georgetown has its own pluses and, minuses. It's very noisy. Glover Park has some great places. Capitol Hill has some great places. So, try to move in and live near where you work. And then from there, you can explore. There's also a great system of bike trails and outdoor activities that you can do just in and around, like the Kennedy Center. Haley, I'm sure that you know, like there's that bike path that goes right down, right to the monuments, and you can visit all of those. So you spend the time to get to know the city. It's a great city. The museums are free when they're open, and but yeah, it's just an ever-changing. Like I said, people are constantly moving in and out. So there is a lot of opportunity to grab housing, whether it's in a group house. I know a lot of young people who are fortunate to find housing in like the basement of a family's house. Sometimes a family wants, to have a young person. They want to defray their costs a little. They have somebody live in their basement. They do a little babysitting here and there, and they really get a reduced rate to live in Capitol Hill or in Georgetown. So those are some tips, and I can put you in touch with people, if you need help finding anything. If I can, help you search. I saw in the chat the DC Catholics looking for roommates. That's a great lead, and I don't know who said that they met their roommates. Was that you, Haley, who said you moved into a house with 6 bedrooms, or whoever said that?
Yeah, I found it on Craigslist.
Yeah. Yeah, on Craigslist. But yeah, so I know that there are a lot of people. I know just kids that graduated a little older than my oldest that have found a lot of roommates that way. So yeah, so the DC market is good. It's very robust. It can be pricey, so I think living by yourself might price you out, especially if you're not sure if you want to stay, or if like you're just on an internship like Kyle, you're just here for a few. Where are you living, Kyle? Are you living with somebody, or?
So I'm actually in Arlington.
Right.
And I originally had a roommate. I went through an intern housing company. So
Okay.
I have an apartment in Courthouse District, and I had a roommate, and then when I moved in, 3 days later, his internship was done, so he moved out. So I have a whole apartment to myself. Wow. So
not bad.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Yeah, so your jobs might be able to find, housing for you also. But I'm also always here as a resource if you just want to, sometimes if people just want to see properties, I'm happy to show you anything and talk about how I can help you find something. Of course, if you want to buy a house or sell a house, let me know. But yeah, I'm here to help with whatever I can for you guys.
Thank you, Sally, very, very much.
You're welcome. Sure.
We have a question in the group chat from Dan. What is your favorite neighborhood to live or spend time in? That is for anyone and everyone. And most of you already responded in the group chat. But if anyone, with responses, we've got Mount Pleasant's Best of Both Worlds, Chinatown's my favorite, Petworth has my heart, Noma and H Street. Does anyone else have anything they want to pump up? Any neighborhoods they want to represent?
Yeah, we live near DuPont Circle between DuPont and Adams Morgan, and we really like this area too. It's very walkable, and it's more a little bit more residential until you get up to 18th Street to Adams Morgan.
Awesome.
Yeah, Woodley Park also is a great place. A lot of young people there.
And one of the great things about DC neighborhoods is most of them have little listservs and discussion boards and things. I know Petworth has Petworth, where you learn about like little things that are going on in the neighborhood. And if you're familiar with Nextdoor, I think it's the app, you can talk to your neighbors and like there are things. There's all kinds of little mini communities, and they are really actually mini communities. So think long and hard about where you want to live, because you're going to be ingratiating yourself to that area. Okay, any other questions?
I just want to plug also Petworth and Parkview. I've not ever lived in Columbia Heights proper, but for over 4 years I lived in Petworth, like right on the line just above Columbia Heights. And now I live in Parkview, which is right on the line east of Columbia Heights. And I recently moved to Parkview, and I found in my search that you do kind of like get more for your money if you're in Petworth or Parkview and you're adjacent to all that Columbia Heights has to offer. But I think that some of the houses are a little bit more recently renovated and spacious. So as you're searching and you may enter Columbia Heights, just do stay on the lookout for Petworth and Parkview. They kind of come as a trio anyway, but I just wanted to let you familiarize yourselves with those neighborhoods as well.
And I just wanted to throw this out there. I heard on the news this morning that, so like Catholic University, maybe Rita can speak to this. I know that, you know, they had announced in May they were going to go back in person, and then kind of late, like was it in July? I think they announced they're not able to go back in person. I think only freshmen allowed on campus. But there are a number of off-campus opportunities. People live off campus around Catholic University, and people have rented apartments or houses, and they are not living in them. So there may be opportunity for people to piggyback on some of those rents and sublet. And you might be able to even sublet for a short, 3 months, because people may just want to have somebody in there to defray costs where they can. So I just threw that out there. And I think also around University of Maryland, probably in Foggy Bottom near George Washington, also in Georgetown, just as an FYI, if there are people if those schools are going to be, online, the people may not be coming back to this area, and those spaces may be coming up and available. So watch the Facebook pages for those. I just throw that out there as an FYI for you guys or people looking.
Great tip, thanks. Oh yeah, and Tammytown and Van Ness. Thank you, Dan. I live in that area as well. It's a quieter area. It's a little further away from like downtown, but the metros and buses are very prominent up there, and you can get down there in about half an hour if you really need to. I always find it's nice to live around a college campus too, because they have Wawas. I'm a Wawa fan. Okay, any last questions about where to live before we move on to the next section?
I do have a recommendation, actually. So I recently moved to Logan Circle, and during my search, I was able to find a bunch of places that were offering great deals. Like the place that I'm living now, it's beautiful. I live on my own, and I was able to get 1 month free plus $150 off the overall rent. So right now is a great time to look.
Great. Yeah, now is a very interesting time at the very least to be looking, considering everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I will pass the torch to Haley, who's going to moderate the next section.
Okay, so we are going to move into chatting about the DC food and drink scene. There is a really amazing restaurant scene that's grown even more expansive over the past few years. We have our favorite institutions, brunch and happy hour, which always amaze my friends who come to visit from out of town. They're two really special facets of DC social life. And I think that the restaurants in DC have really found creative ways to engage the community. In the months that they've been closed, a lot of really cool takeout offerings. One of my favorite neighborhood restaurants offers a customized playlist if you order takeout from them and get a bottle of wine. So I think that that's really fun. It's cool to kind of see what places have been able to come up with. So we are just going to move into chatting about the city's best spots for food and drinks, and the best places to bring your friends and family members when they're visiting from out of town. So I'm gonna throw this over to Meredith for her comments.
Sure, thank you. I will say I probably won't go into specific restaurant and bars just because I have no idea what will be open, sadly, in the coming months, but I can speak kind of in general to what it's like to live here and eat here and socialize here. As Haley said, there's a wonderful food scene. Any ethnicity you can think of, you will be able to find that food in DC, and it's probably really good. Except I haven't really found great pizza. I'm from New Jersey, but I'm picky about that. Anyway, I digress.
Thank you.
No good pizza anywhere.
It's there's also always something new, whether it's a new cafe, a new restaurant, a new bar. Just named like half a dozen neighborhoods, and all of those neighborhoods have their own feel and their own culture, and therefore their own food and drink scene. So it's there's always something to find and something to try if there's a different cuisine that you haven't tried. And one of the things that I love about DC is that the culture is such that it's very common to just say, let's grab a drink after work, let's get coffee, let's have dinner. That's how people network here. And it's how you hang out with your friends here. So it's a wonderful way to not only get to know people, but get to know the city and different types of restaurants. And I'll say one of my favorite aspects that's very specific to DC is the people watching. You never know who is at the table next to you, who's across the bar. But in DC, of course, our celebrities are elected officials. And so there was one night last spring, I happened to be sitting outside at a restaurant on Capitol Hill where I live. And you can always tell someone's coming because you could see the black SUVs coming that have all the tinted windows, and then you see the Secret Service and you're like, ooh, I wonder who it is. So I'm sitting at this table, and first walks in Senator Lamar Alexander, followed by Senator Mitch McConnell. And then, Sarah will remember this, in walks her boss, Representative John Larson, who I had a lovely conversation with, delightful person. So you just never know who is dining with you. And there's always, fun things to read about in many of our DC publications like Politico or the Washington Post, to see who was where and who was dining with whom. So it's wonderful for that. Also lots of great breweries and wineries, which is always really fun to try different things like that and kind of be outside or just hanging out with friends in those types of scenarios as well. So I will open it up to any questions or any other feedback and advice from the rest of the panel.
Hey, so I'll jump in behind Meredith. A great resource, especially as things are fluctuating, is Popville, POPVILLE.com. It's a local website that really chronicles DC's neighborhoods and what's going on, and will give you good ideas on restaurants, and we'll probably continue because they've already been doing it, to touch on what's still around, how people are operating. Another great resource on Twitter is Bard in DC or Bard DC. I'm not going to pull up Twitter right now and look, but it's one of those two, and it's just a guy who's grown in popularity over the last 2 years, rating bars and restaurants, and is also a great resource now and will be in the future for what's up. I'm not going to repeat what Meredith said because she nailed it. Everywhere's a little bit different. There's as good a food as you'll find in any place in the world, New York included, and I'm from northern New Jersey, so I would say there is some decent pizza around here, but you got to go find it. But yeah, places are going to survive this mess, and they're going to come out strong, and they'll be great places to eat when we can all go safely eat again. But yeah, and they're all over the city, from downtown next to the White House all the way up. There's a great spot up by Mark on 17th, burger joint if you know it, and all over. So you got to get out of your neighborhood too, because your neighborhood you'll know, but other neighborhoods, there's a lot of hidden gems. So.
I would also like to talk about, I know we've talked about the bar and the restaurant scene, but there's also, I think, a huge dessert scene throughout the city. And so I personally love like taking people who visit or just friends, because there's such creative, different dessert places all throughout the city. I know a famous or a more famous one would be like Georgetown Cupcakes. But one that I found that is actually right down the road is called Baked and Wired, which is just a cupcake place, which is 10,000 times better. So I definitely recommend, once it opens up, to check that one out. But there's just places that have all creative different types of desserts. You've probably seen them online on Instagram or something like that, with just fun desserts. And so that's just a great part of the city. And I think you should definitely try and, check those places out. Another one that I've been to is called the Milk Bar, which is, it has like milk and cereal flavored ice creams and different things like that. So that's a more creative kind of side of the city that you can check out.
I thought I'd share some of my restaurants. I was thinking about this. I wrote some good stuff down. I'll give you 5 places that I like to go to. Call Your Mother. It's a great Jewish deli. Well, Jewish style bagels. They do good bagel sandwiches. Latkes, I think that's what they're called. Number of locations. They just opened one up in Georgetown. I haven't gone yet, but that's a good place. Yoti, J-Y-O-T-I, I think is the best Indian spot in DC, better than Indigo. I know Indigo has a Michelin star, but I think this one's far superior. That's in Adams Morgan. And at Adams Morgan, you'll find a lot of other good places. Also in Adams Morgan is Rufus Union. I think that's a good spot to take visitors. It's your typical bar style. There's 3 levels. The second level is first and second are more restaurant style, and the 3rd floor is like a rooftop bar with I think they make their own beer. Really good there, a lot of fun. I would recommend. On 14th Street, we have Chicken and Whiskey. They have very moist rotisserie chicken, delicious. I would recommend. And then also on 14th Street is El Centro. I think they have the best margaritas in DC. It's fun also for brunch. Brunch is a lot of fun there. And also at night when they have margaritas and during the day. So you can't go wrong there. As for bars, I have 2 good bars I like to go to. Codmother on U Street is a lot of fun. And Church Hall in Georgetown, we do a lot of game watches there. And I really enjoy that place. It's clean and a lot of games over there, and that's what I would recommend.
John, you skipped the best part about Chicken and Whiskey.
The whiskey part?
It's a speakeasy.
Oh, and I haven't really gone there to drink. I just really go there.
I want to plug, Meredith mentioned this, I want to plug the breweries in the city. Dan asked about this too. So there's some really great breweries and they're all relatively new. DC Brow is one of the more notable ones you may have seen around. My favorite is probably Port City. It's down to Alexandria. They have some really good beer there. 3 Stars, Hellbender, Atlas. Frequently, especially in like early summer or fall, you and your friends will probably go on like a brewery tour every morning or afternoon, and you'll see some of the same people at the breweries because they're doing the same thing as you. So that's a very common DC thing to do, is like a breweries. And those of you who know me from the board know I cannot speak well enough about my favorite bar in the city, Irish Channel. Irish Channel is the bar that we host all of our game watches at. We usually do our national game watch at Church Hall, like John noted, because we can reserve their top floor, their loft there. But Irish Channel is a bar in, I guess it's Chinatown. And it is just the best bar ever because they treat us so well. And as an example, 2 years ago, we were in the Frozen 4 finals, I believe. And the Sweet 16 for the basketball, the March Madness was also being held at the Capital One Center downtown. And Michigan State, who was playing here, decided to make Irish Channel their pregame bar. And they brought, exponentially more people to that bar than we did at Michigan State. But we showed up and we had our little legion of about 20 Friar fans ready to watch hockey. And the bar was packed with Michigan State fans, could not move. But they knew we were coming and they set us up outside. They had little stadium seating for us. And never once did we feel like second-class citizens. And they did not have Narragansett on their beer list, but they do now. So I can't speak well enough about this bar. And if we have game watches, you'll get to experience it.
If I could just hop in for a few suggestions, there's a stretch of Connecticut Avenue between DuPont and Farragut Square that have got some great nightlight spots. So one popular one is Mad Hatter. That's kind of, and there's a few other bars down there that are kind of like rites of passage for like interns and new folks to the city who are like early 20s. And it's surprising that it hasn't been mentioned yet, but the Salt Line down by the ballpark. I think that's everybody's favorite, taste of home if you're from New England like I am, where you could get a good lobster roll and then Narragansett fresh catch. That's a great spot to go to when it's nice out.
I'll also note if you're bringing your parents for a visit, you should look up Fiola Mare. It's a very high-priced restaurant, which is why I would say wait for your parents. But it also has a Michelin star and it's very well known. And you're likely to rub shoulders with some powerful people there too.
I'd also plug the Salt Line in Navy Yard. They occasionally also sometimes have Dells, which is also very fun to have. So definitely a good spot if you're missing some New England comforts. And probably my best Salt Line story is that I saw AOC there one night out for dinner. So that was probably my best DC politician sighting.
Also by, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, Rita.
By Noma, there's a place called Union Market, which is a really cool place to go grab something to eat. And there's also usually, I haven't been over there too recently, but usually there's an area outside for getting like drinks, and they have a lot of cool cocktails and like outdoor games and whatnot. But it's an old warehouse that is now sort of like a mall cafeteria style where you can kind of go to a bunch of different restaurants. So that's really great to bring people if they're visiting, because there's honestly like almost every type of food in there when you walk around for any time of day too. So that's a good spot. And also around the corner from the White House, there's I think it's one of the oldest bars in DC, Old Ebbitt Grill, which is a really cool place to sort of like show off to a visitor or like try to rub elbows with someone on Capitol Hill. But I've brought like people in there just to like get a drink and not eat there. It's like total like old boys club, leather booth kind of like feel to it, but it's very DC and cool to just kind of hop into.
And they got great
that's very
burgers.
They do have great burgers, yeah.
I was going to say the Shaw area, specifically Calico and Columbia Room. It's in Blagden Alley. It's like this little like alley area, and in the summer, Calico is really fun. It's like outdoors. A lot of young people, kind of reminded me of Providence, but another fun area.
Anyone else?
I just want to mention, I know that Meredith said in the beginning, we don't really know what our restaurant scene is going to look like at the end of this pandemic. So if any of these places strike your fancy, I know the Salt Line is near and dear to my heart as well. Look into ways that you can support them, even if you're not interested in dining out or dining outside, or as we get into the colder months. There are a lot of places coming up with really creative ways to still be accessible. I know a couple months ago I did a virtual Zoom tasting with DC Brau. So I bought a ticket and picked up a 6-pack from Franklin Hall featuring 7 different DC Brau beers, and they had like a couple other prizes like a pint glass, and then they held a Zoom tasting just like we're all doing right now. So there are a lot of ways to support, even if we can't dine out traditionally like we're all used to. Alrighty, I think now we are going to move on to the events and activities part of the night. There is a really thriving performing arts community here in DC. We are the second fastest growing US city other than New York for the performing arts. We're second to Chicago. So other than New York, we're the second fastest growing city for the performing arts. I know I've mentioned I work at the Kennedy Center, which hosts many of the touring Broadway theater productions and dance companies from around the world. But it's also home to the Washington National Opera and the National Symphony Orchestra. The contemporary, this is just my bit on events. This is not me trying to sell the place that I do marketing work for. There are great contemporary programs offered, and there will be some outdoor socially distanced events. as we move into the fall. But other than the Kennedy Center, if you're interested in theater, the Shakespeare Theater Company is in Chinatown. So they do obviously like mostly Shakespeare performances, but then also older plays and more traditional musicals. The Signature Theater Company in Shirlington, Virginia, near Arlington, is known for having top-notch quality musicals. And the Arena Stage has produced original musicals that have transferred to Broadway in recent years. Most notably, they held the world premiere of Dear Evan Hansen, if that rings any bells for anyone. But there are a lot of great concert venues in the area as well. 930 Club is an institution here, and they bring a lot of smaller, more up-and-coming indie artists and comedians. The Anthem has been open for a couple of years on the Southwest Waterfront. That's another great neighborhood to bring family members who are visiting. And that's kind of like an extra large version of the 930 Club. It's kind of owned by the same team. I'm personally not a huge concert goer myself, but so other folks might be able to speak better to these venues than I can. But Lizzo, Maggie Rogers, Hozier have all performed there over the past year. But the biggest concert venue is Capital One Arena. That's where like the super pop stars roll through. I know I saw Ariana Grande last year, which was very exciting for me. But does anybody else have any other sort of events and activities? Oh, and I just also want to add, like I said about the restaurants, start following some of these places on social media. If any interests you, sign up for their email lists. All of them are offering really great ways to be accessible during the pandemic and doing, I know the Kennedy Center is doing like couch concerts where artists are performing on live streams from home. There's a lot of that kind of going around, and all of these local spots are doing a lot of great promotion for it. So to kind of get yourself introduced to some of the performing arts and concert scenes in DC, just check those out because they're staying active, trying to stay active.
Thanks, Haley. I'll just quickly give a pitch to the sports scene here, which as a Boston person, I wasn't expecting to be very impressive, but recently it's been the city of champions with the Nationals winning the World Series last year and the Capitals the Stanley Cup the year before. So I'm sorry, JR, I see you're shaking your I'm a Boston guy, but you can still appreciate that you can go to cheap games. I definitely appreciate that. Nationals Park is a great place to see a baseball game. Capital One Arena, as Haley mentioned, is where the Wizards and the Capitals play, and FedEx Field out in Landover, Maryland, is where the newly rebranded Washington football team plays. So you got kind of the big four here, as well as MLS at the new Audi Field, which I have not been to, but I hear is awesome. And the Washington Spirit, or is it the Mystic, the WNBA team? I'm not sure where they play exactly, but basically every major sport is here. And so if you're interested in, maybe the Red Sox will be here or one of your teams will be here and you can go to a game. So.
Haley, I'll just jump in real quick. There's a ton of free activities all over the place, and this is a lousy time to be jumping into this city because you're just not going to see as much of that right now. But between the Smithsonian's and the National Park Service and the major military presence around the city, basically from Memorial Day to Labor Day, there's something going on out along the Capitol, the mall, down to Lincoln every night. And one of the military bands plays every night of the week. Capitol Steps or along the mall. There's parades that go on at the various public military places around the city. And then the Smithsonian's are constantly doing stuff. And the coolest time to be in any one of the Smithsonian's is at night. And they do a few things generally a year at night. And so you just gotta, again, jump on social media or jump on an email list, and you'll find those things. For our Hill, a couple of folks on the Hill or starting on the Hill, been on the Hill, take advantage of all those unique opportunities, because man, there are a lot of them, and they're a lot cooler than what Joe Public gets. So don't hesitate to go out and do those things every day of the week, because you won't get to do them forever, and I certainly miss doing them. But yeah, the free stuff, it's out there. Enjoy it. You're paying for it anyway in your tax dollars, so
To follow what Nick said, literally there's a stretch in time where if you're able to map it out right and you're able to just get on social media and get on your calendar, you could easily get free dinner for the entire week, especially if you're a Hill intern. There's a lot of just like networking nights, briefings that are going on. I know there's one instance I went to. There's a nonprofit in the city. I think it was the Hoover Institute or the Coolidge Institute, one of the major presidential institutes, and they had like a fiscal ship game that they invited interns and other participants to take in, and like the bar tab was completely comped. So there's like events like that, especially during the summer months when interns come on down. Unfortunately, we're past that, and it's not happening this year, but next year's, that's something to look forward to. You can live off hors d'oeuvres for a while, I've found.
There's also that embassy walk that they do in May. I mean, again, we missed it, but where the embassies all open up, and they, Belgium has their chocolate, and Italy may have some pastas or whatever, but you can go in free and visit the embassies. It's usually in May, around Mother's Day, that same weekend. I think that Saturday before. So you can go and walk to those embassies and taste the great food from the countries and just see the embassies, and they give you a little passport and you can get them stamped. And that's kind of a unique, also Washington, D.C. experience, because where else has all these embassies, right around in a close enough area for people to walk to.
Yeah, Sally, that's one of my favorite events that they host down in this DC. I've gone growing up every year. We love to go to that event. So that's a great one to point out. Another one, I love bringing family, friends, or just someone that lives next door, just walking around the zoo. It's free to walk around if you can get there. If you have a car and you need to park, there is parking. It does cost money, but it's a great one just to check out and spend some time. Another one, I think the best resource, I know most people hate Facebook. It's not in the time, it's not in ages, but I find a lot of my events that I attend through Facebook. One I recently did, last summer, I actually did an event through Lululemon. They actually host yoga throughout the city, and all you have to do is sign up through Facebook, and it's really easy. So if you find just different events that, if you have friends, like for example, I'm friends with Rita and I'm friends with Rita on Facebook. So I see an event that Rita's potentially going to attend, it pops up on my Facebook, and then I'm able to attend too, and maybe we'll be able to go together. But of course, now we can't do it now, but in the future, that'd be something fun that we could do. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
One kind of non-traditional thing. Oh, go ahead, Jess.
Another cool thing to do during the summer, Meridian Hill Park on Sunday has a drum circle, and they do that for a few hours. So if you're in the area, it's cool just to hang out over there.
One non-traditional thing that you could do, and I do want to say, I don't think anyone's mentioned intramural sports. There's a lot of intramural sports. That's a great way to make friends in the city. Very popular on the mall. Like having the Lincoln Memorial as your backdrop is a really cool thing. But one thing for those of you, especially just graduating from college, if you miss lectures, there's a great company called Profs and Pints in DC, where you pay, I think it's like $12 or whatever, and you go to a bar and you get drinks, and a local college professor will come up and lecture you about a salient topic. I went to a few. One was about if we moved the capital to a different city, how would that affect DC? I think I went about one bill actually. And they do other things too, like about dragons and science, and they're really robust. They're starting to grow out to other cities as well. So if you want to get your academic stuff on, there's plenty of opportunity for that.
Yeah, Profs and Pints is great. I think DC also is kind of a very sporty city in general. Like there are some fantastic races that come through DC. So there's like the Army 10 miler, the Cherry Blossom 10 miler. There's the Marine Corps Marathon, which I think has been like routinely voted like the world's best marathon to run if you're a first time marathon runner. I'm definitely not a marathon runner, but if any of you are, it's just a great city to be really involved in any sort of intramural sports league or any sort of running club. I know the November Project group in DC is particularly active. I think it's one of the most active chapters in the US. So that's definitely a good resource if you want to kind of get involved in any sort of athletic type of events.
Yeah, despite the fact that we're urban, that we're in a city, there are really great outlets to get outdoors. So as Mary was just saying, running clubs, there are a lot of great trails for running or biking or walking. Rollerblading seems to be making a comeback, so I'm all about that. Or you might want to go kayaking or paddleboarding on the Potomac or the Anacostia rivers. Hiking, if you have access to a car, it's really easy to get to some great hikes in Virginia and Maryland, or go camping, which especially right now during a pandemic, everyone's looking for those outdoor activities. So also wonderful to live in a city where I feel like I have green space.
Yeah, to echo that, Meredith, I live just adjacent from the Rock Creek Parkway, and it's phenomenal. And I really didn't appreciate that until the pandemic, and I'm out there nearly every afternoon. And in addition to, like, you could just walk around DC and get lost and just see all the pretty buildings and all the pretty sites that are in DC. Like, I went just the other day, I went for a nice long loop up to the National Cathedral and back. DC is such a walkable city, no matter where you are. You're not just limited to the mall. It's really all over the place. And bike trails too. You could easily get lost in the wilderness of Northern Virginia if you go far enough on a bike, because there's trails that are going in every single direction in Maryland and Virginia and even in DC. So if you have a bike, bring it to DC, because there's a lot you could do with that bike.
Another thing I want to plug, DC has got to be one of the most well-read cities in the world. As a result, we get a lot of book releases here. A lot of bookstores will have authors come in and release their books, and a lot of national book tours come through, whether they're at the Capital One Center where the Caps play, or at a local bookstore by me. I live up in the Chevy Chase area, so I'm down the street from, or up the street from Politics and Prose, which is a really well-known bookstore in the city. And I remember just one day I was walking home and I decided it was Thursday afternoon, I'll stop by and see, maybe look at a book. It was packed, there was a talk, and Megyn Kelly was there. So you never know who you're gonna see when you go to a bookstore. You might see someone famous presenting their new book. And also other theaters will host big book releases. I remember I went to go see Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Jill Biden. So, you know, Sixth and I does a lot of book releases as well, book tours. So there's a lot of good academic things.
Another quick thing I was going to add, kind of tacking on to some of the outdoor events, some stuff that might be more COVID friendly, I guess. The farmers markets, especially in the summer and the warmer months. Eastern Market is one spot that I love going to. I'm in Navy Yard, so it's a pretty easy walk for me, but they have all different types of vendors. It's not just food, you know, crafts and art and stuff. So you can easily spend an afternoon or morning walking through there. And I know other neighborhoods in the city do similar stuff, DuPont Circle and other spots in DC. And then also being in Navy Yard, I know at least last summer they had like outdoor movie events. So again, I haven't been in the city this summer, but I'm sure they would continue to run stuff like that and in other neighborhoods as well. So sites like Potville or the Washington Post, like things to do, be on the lookout for that stuff.
I would also say don't underestimate like doing those touristy things when you first get here. I know I sort of like took a while to get to that, but even just like spending those days like down on the mall or going to Smithsonian's or different monuments, or just like we're all saying, like getting lost in walking around DC, like you're always going to stumble upon something. So definitely, you know, wear sneakers when you go out for the day. Have made that mistake with some bad flip-flops and stuff that you get kind of sore. But definitely worth like, you know, taking those motorized scooters around the tidal basin, like close to the cherry blossoms. You're that annoying tourist, but it's definitely worth doing. If you're not from around here, at least, it was worth, you know, seeing everything when I was first getting here.
Yeah, I would second that. I was going to say something similar. I did all the touristy things when I first got here, but every time I have new visitors, I jump at the, you know, when they're like, oh, we got to go see the Lincoln, the National Mall. We have to go see everything. And it's just as even special every time. So definitely take advantage of that.
I would also recommend that if you have golf clubs, you should bring your golf clubs to DC. East Potomac is a pretty decent public course in the city. Right along the Potomac on the opposite side of Southwest and the Wharf. It's really nice, and it's really increased in popularity because that's a pretty COVID-friendly activity. I've been doing that a lot this summer. My apartment fits my golf clubs, which I'm happy about. So if you like to golf, don't leave your golf clubs at home. You can play golf in DC.
And I would say tennis too. I haven't played tennis myself in DC, but I know some friends that have. So bring your tennis rackets too.
Does anyone have any other questions or anything else to add? Okay, I think at this point we will turn it over to JR for our final segment of the night.
Was muted. All right. Our last segment is a little corny and a little cheesy, but it is words of wisdom. And luckily, I think most panelists said I have plenty. So you will, lots of words of wisdom, but you're gonna get mine first. So this is a general word of wisdom I have for almost any city you would move to, but it's especially true here. If you're new to a city, you want to make friends, say yes to everything. I didn't know a ton of people when I got here, and you're going to be inclined because you're new to a city and uncomfortable to say, like, no, I'm just gonna like watch. Say yes to everything. You don't know who you're gonna meet. I said yes to everything, and now I have great friends, great people I know, and I've met a ton of people by just being open and saying yes when we're asked to do something. I joined a random softball team through my one friend I knew. And through that, I met my trivia team. And through that, I am now at a beach house in New Jersey because that's how I met him. Because I said yes one day to something. And that's just how kind of the world works right now, is especially how DC works, because DC is a very active city. I moved here from Philadelphia, which is a very different city. And the one way I like to describe things is that DC, you do intramural sports to make friends. In Philadelphia, you do intramural sports and you're expected to bring your friends. So like that's kind of what the atmosphere and the society that we have in DC is. Very open, very neat people, very friendly. So come prepared to do everything, because that's how you're going to meet your friends and your network. Second, the two most common questions that you're going to be asked and you're going to be pressured to ask yourselves are, where are you from? Because likely nobody you're talking to from here. And where do you work? Because that is why you're here. It gets really old really quickly. So what I would recommend is you may ask those questions along the way, but think of some other questions that you're going to want to ask someone, because it can be kind of alienating sometimes. That's still information you're going to want to get, but just try to think beyond where you're from, where you work, because you're going to find yourself, especially if you go to like a networking night, asking that over and over and over and over and over, and you're going to get tired of it. Thirdly, if you are committed to moving to the city, take the jobs that are available to you. You may not find your dream job. You may, but you may not find your dream job right away. And DC is a city that values hard work and networking. So find something that can get you here and work your way through. I never thought I would end up working at the Department of Veterans Affairs, but I did. And your career is not necessarily going to follow a linear path. We're getting into speeches from networking night at this point, but if you want to be here, you can make it here. You just have to work hard, but don't get too picky or elitist about the job that you're taking. If you want to be here, find a way to be here, and then go from there. And then lastly, use this club. We are a really, really strong regional club for PC. And you should use us, because I have made so many friends through this club. It's a growing club, and you're going to have little mini friend groups around your graduation class. You're going to do a lot of things together. You're going to be invited to each other's weddings. And when you're down here, you want that common link. You want something to share with somebody that you may not have otherwise. So come to events, meet the board, come to a board meeting. Avail yourselves of all of the things that the club does, and it's a really soft landing spot for somebody new who may not know anybody. That you'll be welcomed with open arms by a group of people who has already done that for many people, including myself, and who share something with you and can relate to you. So with that, I will pass it to whoever wants to give their words of wisdom.
JR, you got me.
Jump. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, Mark, I was Mark's RA, so Mark, you go first.
We'll keep the stories for offline that Nick knows, but I was what JR just said about taking any job that the city offers really resonates with me, because that's basically what I did when I graduated Providence. I went to a sales job that I really didn't want to do, but I wanted to come to DC. So I took the first and only job offer that I had. Meredith knows where I was. We were colleagues for a very brief amount of time at the advisory board. But then once I got down here, I did a lot of networking, meeting with PC alumni and others who they connected me with. And then I ultimately ended up on the Hill before I went to law school. I think definitely due in part to just being in the city when jobs are available and you were able to go in for interviews on short notice, and things you just can't do when you're interviewing from afar. So I would just take any opportunity that you get. Like JR said, that you may end up having several different jobs, different companies, but just sort of be open-minded. Sort of related to that, I would definitely, besides using just this club, I would also just talk to the PC alumni office, because they may, although I know we probably have a good feel down here for who is, PC alumni in the area, they definitely, when I was graduating school, they connected me with a lot of alumni who I don't know I'm not sure that they were involved in the PC and DC club, but they were in pretty, senior positions at different places, and I was able to do informational interviews with them. So that's another resource. The alumni office may have contacts for people that we might not even have. So I'm not sure how closely they work with JR and the club leadership, but and then just lastly on this, I was going to jump in on the housing point, but I'll just jump in on it now. Don't be afraid to really live cheap, or as cheap as you can. That's what I did. I ended up finding a 2-bedroom apartment that had a little den, and we had a temporary wall built so we could fit 3 people in it. And we really sort of saved costs that way. So there's all sorts of different ways you can sort of, pinch your pennies when you're first starting out, which all of us have done at one point or another. So, but yeah, I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions after the call. You can send me an email or whatever, but it was nice to meet everybody.
Nick, before you go, I just want to quick interrupt. You brought up a good point, Mark. I neglected to do this at the beginning of the chat, but I should introduce Patrick Walker, who is on this call and is my liaison from the alumni office. So Patrick, if you have any words you just want to say to the club, feel free.
Yeah, no, again, we're here as a resource for everyone. We're helping, actually, we had an alum reach out to us looking for some input the other day for alums that are in the DC area. So we've helped put together a list of folks that are in your industry that she's interested in to be able to have informational conversations with. So we're here for you. If you need anything from the college, we'll be glad to help where we can. Thank you.
Nick, you had something to say, I think.
JR, you said it, and Mark, you said it well. This is a town of networking, which is a hard thing to do right now. So don't be discouraged, both on the social side, on the job side, on the housing side. We're all figuring it out together. So don't hesitate to reach out to a friar. A friar will not ignore you. They won't not turn around and shoot you a note. You may be on the lower end of their list of priorities, so shoot them another note. So many folks have done that for, I'm sure, most of us, and we would all do it for any of you, and share that. That's something that we all need to know. I won't repeat the stuff that's been said about networking, but most jobs are not posted anywhere. Most jobs are not easily accessible to folks who aren't in the industries that you want to be in. So come and ask. And then the last thing I'll leave it with is, we're in a pretty divisive time right now, and the city may look from afar like a place that you don't want to be. And that's just not the case. It is a great place to be. And wherever you fall on the political spectrum, it's going to be a great place to be in the future. And so don't be hesitant to come jump into the fray wherever you feel like you fit, and roll up your sleeves, because that's how we get stuff done here. And so there's a place for everybody down here, regardless of where you are. And, it's a great place to be. So thanks, JR. Great to meet everybody.
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else want to say their words of wisdom? Bill, go ahead.
So DC has a reputation of being the hotspot with some of the smartest people in the world. I know I'm on a call right now with some of the smartest people I've ever met, and it could get intimidating at times, when you're going to these networking events and you're with these such incredible people that are talking about their backgrounds. And as was mentioned before, like where you're from, what do you do for work? It gets tiring after a while. So I would suggest to folks when they're coming down, yes, DC has a reputation of being a powerhouse of a city, but it's also filled with people. It's not just superheroes and supervillains and stuff like that. It's one thing I'd recommend is to be humble, be vulnerable, come with an open mind. Don't compare yourself too harshly to other people, because everyone is at different stages of their careers and their educations. There's no way that you could easily put your accomplishments and your resume neatly against somebody else's. It's just not going to happen, and it's going to drive you insane. And the next thing I would say to folks is dare to fail. Dare to fail, because you'll learn better by getting thumped on the head than not getting thumped on the head at all, because you'll have that mark or bruise or whatever, and you'll go back and you'll think about it the next time that something happens. So just dare to fail. Be open to change, and be open to everything. Be attached to nothing. So those are kind of my words of wisdom.
Thanks,
I
Bill.
completely agree with Bill. One thing I will say, like when I moved to DC, I didn't realize what the culture was like. It was a huge culture shock for me, just because it was so cutthroat, and a lot of the people that I worked with had these amazing, accomplishments. And I felt like, as someone who grew up in immigrant family in Rhode Island and South Providence, that how did I make it here? But I did. I was able to make it to DC. So I think just to remember that you are here for a reason, and you can accomplish anything that you want as long as you put in the work and you have the right mindset. Another thing that I will mention is when I first moved to DC, I felt like I didn't meet many people who looked like me or who had a similar background as me. So join affinity groups. After I started looking on Facebook, I was able to find other Dominicans in DC, and like other folks who like yoga. So definitely use those affinity groups to find folks who have similar interests as you. So yeah, and if anyone, on this call is Dominican or, wants to talk a little bit more about my experience as a person of color in DC, I'm more than happy to talk to you.
I will add, sorry, go ahead. You talk.
Sorry, no, I was just going to add in and say, don't be afraid of change. When I was graduating, all of my friends were either taking jobs in New York and Boston, and, all planning to move in together, live together, making all of these plans. And, there I was moving to DC, and not one of my friends from my house or, my close group took a job in DC. So I essentially kind of had to start over. the only person that I was like super close with or closest to was Sarah, who's on this call, because we had some poli-sci classes together. And, you know, a year and a half later, we're really, really great friends. So I would just say, you know, don't be afraid if all of your friends are going to other cities and you're kind of the lone wolf, because it was the best decision that I've made.
Same exact thing happened with me, Megan. Coming down here, of course, I have my esteemed friend John on the call, who came down with me. We started day one together at college, and now you're still here, still together. But a lot of my friends too went to Boston, and don't feel afraid to go against the current. You know, if you have a dream or if you have an ambition of working down here, living down here, and staying down here, that's something you cannot replace, and it's all worth it if you put the effort in, the time in, and you know, the blood, sweat, tears, and it's such a beautiful place to live. So it's worth the hustle, it's worth the effort. So if you come down to DC, be the one that swims against the current.
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, when I worked for my company in Boston and I came down for them, we were doing affinity marketing. So in DC, there is an association for everything. You know, reserve officers, a runners group. So Jessica said, look for affinities. If you have a particular interest, Veteran Affairs, look at their websites. They probably have jobs if you want to just start out. Get a job, you'll get acclimated. Definitely they'll be involved with the legislative process. That's why those affinity groups are here. They want to have a presence in DC to do that legislative work. So you'll get connections to something that you have a passion for, and then make connections, and who knows what will happen from there. There's many groups down. I throw that out as just kind of like another way to look for jobs, another place to look for jobs.
Yeah, trade associations are great things. I mean, it really is. There's an association for everything. There's even an association for associations, and my office happens to be in the same building as them. But again, great place to start out on the ground floor. It seems like trade associations are always looking for those entry-level folks. So even if you don't have a specialization in that field, like I didn't come in with a master's of science and nutrition or wellness or anything like that, but I was a former college athlete. Like, start at the ground floor and then just embrace and learn as much as possible. You know, if you want to go into a field like international relations, but you end up finding a job that represents bakers or some food group or whatever, and it's not where you want to be, embrace it and work your way up to the top. Trade associations, I cannot speak how much I love working for a trade association.
Kind of following up with what Megan and Jessica kind of were talking about, don't be afraid to, you know, go to these things by yourself. I would kind of compare it to going to Ray for the first time and not knowing anyone. You went for the first time not knowing anyone, but then the second time you met someone and you never went to Ray by yourself again. So don't be afraid to, you know, go to this yoga group by yourself for the first time. You're going to meet people are so nice for the most part in DC. I mean, you're always going to find those few people that aren't so welcoming, but you're always going to find someone that, you know, let's just sit next to them during yoga, or let's just sit next to you during a performance or whatnot. So don't be afraid to go to these places by yourself for the first time to be able to meet new people.
I'll also add, before we wrap up, one of my favorite kind of DC personalities is Alyssa Mastromonaco. She worked for John Kerry and worked in the Obama administration, and she most recently served as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations under Obama, and she was the youngest woman to ever hold that position. And I attended her book talk last February at 6th and I, which Jara mentioned. And she said something that really stuck with me back then. She said, sometimes you have to define success broadly, and sometimes all that means is paying your rent, having health insurance, and having a good credit score. And that like really resonated with me back then. I have been unemployed for the past 5 months due to the pandemic. I mentioned at the beginning, going back to work in 2 weeks. I've been like kind of hustling, walking dogs, taking care of my friends' children, and kind of making it work. And so I just want to say, like, don't get discouraged. This is a really awful time to be finding a job right now. So be patient, have faith. Like JR said, say yes to everything, and it's going to work out because good things happen to good people, and we're all good people.
All right. Any final words of wisdom from the panel? Anyone who hasn't spoken in a little while? Anyone want to nothing?
Hey, JR, are you going to pass around our contact information, or is it sort of self-evident from the email?
So what I was going to say is in my closing comments, I was going to ask the panel to add their email to the group chat, because at the end of this, we can export the group chat. All the questions and answers that have been put in the group chat, we can send around to people. So, or at the very least, I'll capture it and send it around. So if everyone wants to throw their email in the group chat, so I guess we just kind of slide into the final comments here. If you guys have any questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, we can close. But I just wanted to finish by saying thank you to all the panel members that came. This was a great event. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So much great advice. I learned a lot, and I'm running the panel. Thank you to our new members who joined and had some good questions as well. I will say, for those of you who just graduated from Providence, and those of you who haven't, you may not realize it yet, but the further away from Providence you get, the more you realize what a special experience it was and what amazing people you met there, and how amazingly willing Friars are, and Nick mentioned this, how amazingly willing Friars are to help each other. And I think that's evidenced right here. On a whim, Haley and I emailed like 15 people, and most of them said, yes, I want to come, I want to help. And that is just indicative of our club en masse. One thing that we also do, and please tell your friends about this, we help New Alum Network with alum to help find them jobs. I know at least one person on this call that I've connected with a handful of people to talk about their career. And that's something that a lot of Friars want to do. They want to do because they themselves have been the beneficiaries of those relationships. And we all just want to pass it on and be good stewards of our degrees and our fellow alum. So I highly recommend reach out to me, reach out to Haley, reach out to the our club email address, which I'll pass around, and ask questions. Tell us what you want to do, what interests you, what career fields you want to go into, and we can help connect you with somebody, because we have a diverse group of alum down here that are in a variety of fields, and surely there's somebody we can hook you up with. So welcome to the city and welcome to the club. We're really happy to have you here, and we can't wait to meet you. So thank you all for coming. I really can't thank you enough, and have a great night and great weekend.
Thanks, JR. This was great.
Thank you.
Hey guys.
Great to meet everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Go
And
Friars.
I'll hang on if anyone wants to try that personally. I'll hang on.
Thank you so much.
Is there still the softball team?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I definitely join that when I get down.
Great. Yeah. So we're part of CAN, the Capital Alumni Network. There are 60-some teams in the league. Every school you could think of is represented there. Rita's here. Catholic usually has a very good team. And
Sorry,
we
didn't hear
played. Catholic has a really good softball.
Oh, okay.
We have our team has about 20 people on it from a variety of years. It's the first thing I joined. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to ingratiate yourself with the club. You play 14 games throughout the season, and then you have this big tournament at the end of the summer, especially last weekend, where it's just like beer flows, and it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. So definitely come and join when you get down.
No, definitely keen on that and the events
Yeah.
after hearing all
Well,
this.
tell us about yourself, Peter. What did you